I think we're at risk of doing the same problems that we did 15 years ago for digital pathology with AI. And the pattern I'm seeing is identical. 15 years ago, there were all the digital path vendors at a meeting and they were like, we're all ready to go. It was not ready to go. And nobody was up for it. In the US, radiology has 900 AI tools FDA cleared for diagnosis. Pathology has 6. My understanding is that it's being pushed as a self-validated AI solution for most companies, but I think it's not organized. And the most important thing that I've noticed is I don't think pathologists developed a lot of the AI tools currently. And I think that this is a problem with pathologists not being engaged in the process of creating things.
Learn about the newest digital pathology trends in science and industry. Meet the most interesting people in the niche and gain insights relevant to your own projects. Here is where pathology meets computer science. You are listening to the Digital Pathology Podcast with your host, Dr. Alexandra Zhurov.
Welcome, my digital pathology trailblazers. Today, my guest is Dr. Syed Hoda. Welcome, Syed. How are you today?
I'm good, Alex. Thanks for having me.
And we're going to be talking about something, I don't know if it's controversial, but I would say it's not the common way of doing things in digital pathology. However, it was very successful for you, Syed. We're going to be talking about going all in on digital pathology deployment at an institution rather than doing it slowly. So before we dive into this, Syed, let's tell the trailblazers about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a pathologist at NYU in New York City. I'm a clinical professor of pathology at the NYU School of Medicine and director of the Bone and Soft Tissue Pathology Service and Sarcoma Service here. I spend a lot of time teaching, et cetera, and I've done this for 15 years. And then a few years ago, I became the digital pathology director at NYU. It's a topic that I've loved for many years, but never had the resources or the go-ahead to reimagine. So I'd been kind of planning this for many years in my mind, but nothing actively happening until a few years back. So that's my sort of background.
And we have something in common. So I'm recording this podcast in Poland. And Syed, you finished your med school in Poland, right?
Totally right. Yeah. I know I was born and raised in the U.S., but I traveled when I was young. So I wanted to get out of the U.S. and see the world. So I ended up at a medical school in Hungary for a while and then transferred to Poland and then graduated from Medical University of Silesia in Katowice and then did my U.S. rotations in Chicago and other places. So that was sort of my level. So yeah, Polish, but I've forgotten it all, Alex. If you want to train me again in Polish, then.
Yeah, we can set up some Polish classes, but I mean, you're not going to have too much use of it in the US.
That's the problem. If you don't speak a language, you forget it. If you don't speak it daily. Where in Poland are you?
I'm close to the German border, like 50 kilometers from the German border, near Gorzów Wielkopolski.
Got it. Okay. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So when we were talking before this podcast episode, you reached out and basically told me going slow is the disease in digital pathology adoption. Going slow is totally not the way to go, even though everybody is like, oh, can we go slow? Can we go bit by bit? Can we do it piece by piece? This is totally not what you are preaching. Although this is like the conventional wisdom in digital pathology. Let's unpack this.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. So I think I've thought about this a lot. There are a few reasons for this. One is that pathology departments and institutions and groups are somewhat scared to ask for the resources in grander scale. So they settle for small amounts of money that get allocated to them to do digital pathology, and they end up doing these little minor digital pathology things. Like I've spoken to so many institutions now in the last year, and a common theme is we have one scanner, we use it for tumor boards or for teaching or interesting cases, but it's not used in any meaningful workflow, right? Like in the department. And I get it. The pathology departments, if they don't get the money or the resources, they can't invest fully in the digital path. But this takes some, like, pathologists have to be more bold and loud and say that we need this, and we need to transform our workflow completely, rather than kind of being like, okay, we'll just take a little bit of money and do every year we'll ask for a little bit more. But what it ends up doing is you end up with like a 7-8 year journey for digital pathology, where some of the people are using it, some of them are not. There's no organized workflow. You don't get all the benefits of digital pathology. The benefits are actually transforming the department that you're at once, to create a new workflow, to create a new way of working for everybody. And if you're not doing that, then you're kind of artificially holding yourself back. And I would go just as far as to recommend some institutions to even aggregate the money over a few years first and not roll out anything. Save the money and buy it all at once, rather than buying one machine in 2025, one machine in 2026, one in 2027, and then kind of slowly doing it. I would think it's better to do it together, because you create uniform workflows, uniform training, you're all together in it. You know, there's a unity aspect of it that's missing in a 7-year phase-in approach. So I can talk about this for a long time, because I think the early adopters of digital pathology, and they have my sympathies, because there was no precedent or no idea of what to do, what's right, what's wrong. And they had to kind of do it this way, like slowly kind of introduce it into the workflow. And I think that model was good for them because they were early. But I think now we're not early anymore. We're kind of at the right time. And I think it needs a mind shift, a mindset change.
So how did you come up with this idea? Like, how did you decide that, okay, I need to have the money, or I need to have the plan to do it all at once? Even though, like you said, the early adopters, the common wisdom is, oh, go bit by bit. How did you become so courageous? Like, what inspired you to go all at once and to figure out how to get the money and do it all at once?
It's another great question. The one thing I will say is that I am at a place that prides itself on kind of being innovative in that way. Like, they made medical school free here for all the students. Like, there's some element of them doing things differently, right, than the usual US institution. So when our dean and CEO found out about this, he was a radiologist, right? So radiology and pathology are always sort of joined at the hip philosophically in the way we kind of look at the medical world. So he was super enthusiastic about it. He really wanted it to happen. And he was, we got resources very, very fully, like thoroughly, which is unique in itself, right? So there's a bunch of unique things that happened. The CEO was a dean, radiologist. He was enthusiastic about it. My own leadership was also enthusiastic about it. And then I had been already enthusiastic for many years. So for me, this was already in the planning that I would do it this way, to do it really seamlessly and more together and in a cohesive way rather than this approach. So, but even then, Alex, like, I will admit that my thought about it, like, I had read the papers about 5 years, 7 years, whatever. And I thought I could do it in probably two. I didn't think one or less. I thought 2. His idea was 9 months. So the CEO suggested 9 months. And when I first heard that, I was kind of taken aback. But at the same time, within the course of a day, I was ready, because, what is 2 years and 9 months and 12 months? Like, I figured we could make it happen. And with that much support and sort of, enablement, like, you can do those things if you have that support, right? On another side, if I didn't have that support and somebody was telling me to do it in 9 months, I think it would be really difficult to do it that way. But the more I found out about it, the more I convinced I became that we could do this for sure. Like, we had IT support, we had project management involved, we had access to people and resources and planning, even things like building a room for the scanners, right? Like, there was a plan for all of that. So it became really like, yes, it took some courage on me to talk to pathologists and to do those things and kind of spearhead it. But it took courage for the administration to give pathology this kind of resources and say, hey, can you do it? Right. And that was my side. Our side was to make it happen. Right. Their side was to make it happen on their end. So that's kind of how it came along. It's kind of like all these things came together at the same time with the same kind of spirit. So
this is so fortunate that your supervisor, your boss, was a radiologist, because he already knew intrinsically what's the value of digitization. It was basically translating it into another department, another discipline. So it's nice to hear that he motivated you to do it faster. And now you're kind of an example for other departments. So let's talk a little bit about the logistics. How did you do it? Like, okay, you secured the money, you had the support, everybody was on board. How do you actually do it in 9 months?
Yeah, the big thing that I am really, really emphasizing here, and what I'm seeing institutions not do sometimes, is to take your time in planning first, like before rolling out. And I think what people end up doing is that they get their resources and then they're kind of in a hurry to like make it happen because they don't want to lose the resources, or they don't want to, but that's not the part to hurry. I think the part to make faster is the actual rollout. The planning of it, like we found out, I remember in like late 2023 is kind of when I got most of the word. And then from late 2023 through September of 2024, we were always daily on calls, planning everything. Like we looked through our labs, we looked through the function, the workflow, we hired people, we built a room, we created all of these ideas, built Epic Beaker, like we customized the lab operating system. We tested all these things. Like we didn't just like roll things out. We would test them endlessly to make sure that things are working and functioning, and we selected vendors for things. And, so that planning stage, I think, was very intensive. And the most important thing I'd like to say is that I didn't do that planning. I had a project management team that we were given, who organized the meetings, who scheduled things, who got vendors, contacts. I can't do it. Like if you put it on the pathologists, they're not going to have the time, and they're going to move really slowly through the planning. So that team was really organized. And then so I could focus on the pathologist aspect while the IT team would talk about, their integration side and testing that. And I would be testing, for validation and to make sure that we have the right people looking at things. So there was a real large team at some point. It was 40, 50 people who would regularly be on calls at the same time. And I can't emphasize enough that 9 months of planning is why we could roll out in September and have very few issues, because things were tested so much in that 9 months.
Mm-hmm. The planning is not what consumes the resources, right? So like you say, even before securing or, saving or getting the resources, you can have a plan how you would want to do it.
You can. The only problem is that I do think you're totally right. Like, it makes sense to discuss and have a vision and an idea of how to do it. That doesn't take any resources to discuss. What takes resources is that when you're speaking to vendors or negotiating with vendors and building out, integration across software with vendors, that stuff is taking resources, right? Because the IT team needs to be involved. They put in effort into it. They have to test things. So now you're kind of doing that. But yeah, it is part of their job too, but they have to be allocated to the project, right? Like if a pathologist department is like begging for IT people to help, it's going to be a problem. Like our IT team, so one of the cool things is our IT team looked at this as the way I saw it, they looked at it like a transformative change of a specialty. And for them, it was like a project too. Like they're redoing an entire specialty, the way they work. So it was really like a cool thing to see them be so invested in the idea.
Mm-hmm. So I had a chance at some point in my career also working with project managers. Oh my goodness. Like these people have superpowers to pull in the right expertise at the right time. And actually, like they would make me deliver on time, where if I was doing it myself and like trying to plan everything and according to my schedule, it would be like, I would say suboptimal timing. But project managers, they have some superpowers. And like you say, it is a resource. But from what I'm hearing from you right now is basically stop sweating about the scanner. It doesn't really matter. You didn't like mention, oh, we did so many tests about the scanner. Let's talk about that. What do you think about this question that usually starts the digital pathology discussion?
Yeah, that's the first question that everybody asks. And looking back on it, I totally agree, Alex. I don't think that that is really an important question at all. I think that of course, fundamentally, yeah, there's a cost associated to it. You have to integrate it with your system. But honestly, after looking at all these scanners, like most of them are actually good quality enough that any pathologist could use them and be fine with them. The question becomes, can you integrate it into your hospital or your center or your lab? And can you afford, the cost of it and stuff? And does it, do you, like, for me, it was really important to have service agreements with them to make sure that the scanner company is actually helping us because we're doing something unprecedented for a large academic medical center. Like that company, like Philips, needed to know that we would need some things from them. We want rapid service. We want training help from their staff to train our pathologists and make sure that they're okay. We needed an ongoing thing. So, for example, we negotiated to have them on site for a year, like training people. And that made a huge difference for us. Like we always had somebody around. So if I was signing out a case and I was having a problem or I was confused, I could call or email them and be like, hey, Nicole, I need your help. Like, can you stop by today or tomorrow? And she would come by. So that was like a massive thing to have, I think. And I think that kind of stuff is way more important, along with navigating the actual workflow. Like, how does a pathologist work? Redefining how a pathologist works, not the scanner type. The scanner type, whether, Alex, you ask me this right now, whether I have Philips or Hamamatsu or Leica or whatever, I would still be having this conversation with you after going through the same kind of things that we had to navigate. So I don't think that the scanner is the biggest contrast.
Mm-hmm. And it used to be like a discussion, which one is better, which one is like diagnostic quality. Now with, I don't know how many cleared devices we have, like 10, 8, I don't know. Every month there is a new scanner being cleared by the FDA. Yeah. And this is basically a testimonial to not the scanner as a device is good enough. They have to be good enough to do primary diagnosis on them. But to me, that amount of cleared devices means digital pathology is good enough. So pick the tools that you like. But what I'm hearing from you is, rather than the tools that are all good enough, pick the team that you want to work with, or figure out how you want to work with the team that is helping you implement the scanner. So it's a lot more about the people than the machines. And there are obviously people and teams helping you from the vendor side. But what about your people in the department? How did they react to the announcement, or I don't know how you did that, hey, next year we're going to all go digital?
Well, I will say one of the things that I prototyped also was that by the time we were going digital in like 2023, 2024, most of the people who were doing digital path at large institutions, they were more of an informatics background, more technologically aware, and people who, pathologists who had informatics training and those things. I am none of those things, Alex. I am like the most ordinary pathologist. Like I am, a sarcoma guy. I diagnose bone and soft tissue. I have a service. I diagnose just like every other pathologist that works everywhere in the world, like daily. So I'm not a tech person. I'm not even a technology. I don't even like technology. I actually use like old watches. Like I have listen to vinyl records. I'm not one of those people. But I figured that if I could figure out the most simple way to do these things, like in a way that I could understand, then I think other pathologists would understand too. And that was kind of the idea here. So when I announced it with my department leadership, we actually talked about it a lot. Like we would talk about it at every faculty meeting. We made an announcement that this is our plan, is we're going digital, and it's going to be all of us. and it's going to be in under a year when we roll out. We started with that idea. We were very transparent in the fact that there was no dilly-dallying about this might be 2 years, this might be 3 years. Like it was that once we roll out in September of 2024, it's going to be a year or less. It's going to be every single pathologist signing out that's going to be moving to digital. And that was really the expectation of the department, that we were all expected to do that together. There was no idea that some people would not use it and some people wouldn't, like go slower. None of that. It was really like a communications thing. And this is part of change management. Like, change management had been, we can talk about it more later, but this is all part of the change management discussion of how to talk about it with people, how to let them talk about it too. We would take a lot of opinions. Like I can talk about it later in the change management part too, but we had open discussions, very open.
We can talk about it now because, it's natural for people to react in different ways. So when it comes to change management, I think it's used as a buzzword, and many are not aware that it is an official term and an official way of executing change in an organization. And let's talk about that in your case.
Yeah, it is a very organized thing. And it's, when I first heard about change management, it had nothing to do with digital pathology. I was doing a leadership course with NYU for other things. And in that, there was a woman, Kelly, who was talking about change management. And my ears perked up because everything she was talking about was about how groups of people in a workplace or otherwise get a new idea and how they progress into something new. And for me, I made a bookmark in my brain then that when we do digital pathology, this is exactly the kind of thing that needs change management. But like you said, Alex, I've seen it mentioned as a buzzword, but with no depth associated to the change management side. So when this happened, the first thing I did was I actually called her and I said, can you come and meet with me and some of the department leadership to discuss change management about this? And she did. And it was fantastic. Like she went through some of the principles of it. Like, I'll just give you an example. There's something called ADGAR. So ADGAR are the principles of change management. The first step is awareness. The second one is desire. The third one is knowledge. And then the fourth one is adoption and then reinforcement, right? So you go through these stages. And like, if I tell you that tomorrow you're going to move to like a different house in Poland, right? Like that's a big change. And like, you would first have to be made aware of that change, right? And then you would hope that at some point you say, yes, I would like to do that change. So that would be the desire component. So awareness, desire, and then you would ask, like, where is this house? Like, where's the information about it? Like, where, how many rooms does it have? So that's the knowledge component. And then hopefully you would want to eventually, after getting those first three things, move to the adoption where you actually move to the house. And then you stay there, and that would be the reinforcement, right? So this is the same kind of principle we use for Digital Path. Like these guys, first of all, they're all very educated people, like really good pathologists. But some of them had heard different things about digital pathology over many years. And we had to first give them some awareness about what it is we're talking about. What are we going to do? Why does it matter? How many of us are doing it, right? And then we let them talk about it, like amongst themselves. We had town hall meetings where it was free. You said, hey, tell us what you are worried about. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you're excited about. Tell us what you hate. And they would go off and tell us all these things. And it was very terrifying.
What did they hate?
It felt like it was really uncomfortable for me. But at the same time, I also learned something myself, is that like if you're leading a process, it's not about how I feel, right? I'm leading it for 95 people. So their opinions matter and their concerns matter. And the only way I can make this better is to hear what their problems are and try to fix them, right? Like try to address them. So, some people were worried about like, is my wrist going to hurt if I'm just using the computer too long? I have a list of these. I saved some of them. Like my wrist is going to hurt off using the mouse too much and not, I'm used to the microscope. And so, we made a response to that. We have like wrist rests for everybody. We also have different devices, like different types of mouses and controllers and stuff. So we addressed issues like that. over and over again. So that's kind of the idea. And we brought in some outside speakers to talk about it and build awareness and understanding. And we naturally let it go, like kind of let it flow. We talked about it a lot. And prior to what you were saying, so change management was mentioned in some papers, but I don't think there was ever a mechanism employed to have a dedicated person. Like I had a dedicated person who was trained in change management, working with me every single day in that 9 months of planning before. We would look at the impacts of change management on every process change. So if slides are going to move to here, who is that going to impact, and what would they care about in that mechanism? So that's how detailed we got into the change management.
Oh, wow. From the concerns that people shared, what was the one that was like most surprising? Something that you did not hear before?
The most surprising?
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of really strange small things that people said. Like, for example, they'll miss the metallic sound of a slide hitting a microscope stage. really abstract kind of things like that. And then there were people that were like, I miss sitting at a microscope with another pathologist, like next to them, like looking at a case together. There's something very like real about that. And so, like, for example, like that kind of thing, like the interpersonal, like communication between people, like in my office right now, there's a monitor that's facing out away from me. And that's for the other person in the room with me. So that really hasn't changed. Like we made sure to create an office space which would still be collaborative, that if somebody's sitting in front of you, just because we're not using this microscope, it doesn't mean that that person-to-person thing is diminished. Like I just had a person come in 2 hours ago, show me a case. They sat down and we looked at it together the same way we would on a microscope. So that's a result of addressing these kinds of comments.
Mm-hmm. You know what was the thing that I heard once? Because with AI, everybody is like, oh, you're not going to have to do the boring cases. You're not going to have to search for metastasis in lymph nodes. AI is going to do this for you. And it was an example from a conference. Somebody said, but this feels therapeutic for me. I like it. It makes me calm. And actually, I can relate to that because when I read the studies for preclinical evaluation, a lot of the slides are just normal, and that's what it is. And I sometimes enjoy it. I sometimes enjoy looking at the normal and just like being in this kind of slide viewing trance. So that would be my funky thing about, even though actually it doesn't go away with digital. That would go away with AI doing part of the job with you. So I'm not there yet.
Yeah. We can, that's kind of a separate topic, but the AI conversation is a complicated one. And I think it's still evolving, right? And I will tell you on our end, we did not lead with any AI. And for me, the situation that I've been watching is that pathology has a habit of getting ahead of itself. So I went to a meeting 15 years ago where the people were saying digital pathology will be ready in 5 years and everybody will have it. And it was frankly wrong. It was completely off target. And the reason why is that they make these big promises and it creates too much pressure and people don't do it. So AI, we did not even involve AI in our process. You got to first get people onto the platform. Like, can you imagine, Alex, if everybody got an iPhone back in 2009 and then you were already putting Siri on there and being like, now you got to use Siri and nobody would have, like, people would have been much more apprehensive about it all. And like, you got them into the platform, they started using it, they got comfortable, and then you added other stuff as you went along over time. Like, there's no rush to, we are not like fast tracking AI as like the promise. I think we have to first get people modernized. And then we move to the next stuff,
Mm-hmm. And you're an institution with a lot of pathologists. I also work in an institution that has many pathologists. We have 160 veterinary pathologists. And do you guys have like 100 people as well?
Yeah, we have like 95. It's going up all the time, but I think it's something in the high 90s. Yeah.
So do you guys how did it enable people to work remotely? What is the situation there with digital? Were you able to bring in more people? Did you have anybody quit because they had to do digital? What was the situation there in terms of, just being comfortable working differently?
Nobody has left because of digital pathology. There's not a single person. I was really worried about this when this started, that I don't want to lose. I don't know how it is in other places right now, but I'm guessing it's the same. But in the United States, there's a huge shortage of pathologists, and the job market is, they can go anywhere and get a job. So it's not hard to move around. And so, no, nobody quit because of digital path. They all adopted it. Every single pathologist adopted it at the end. And to remote, like we have 65 people working remotely right now, or 60 to 65 out of the 95 plus. And they love the remote setup. Like NYU provided the remote setup for them. It's the exact same office computer and diagnostic monitor as they have in the office. So they have the identical spec. It's super fast. There's no lag, just like the office. Like for me, it was mega important that this system has zero lag. Like I've seen some systems that had lag and it was not acceptable to me. So we made it really, really, really fast. And the home setup is just as fast as the office setup. So they love the remote. I mean, the remote thing has taken off for us.
I think the speed is the one real thing that cannot be compromised. And for a long time it was, because the systems just were not fast enough. And this a not fast enough digital system is basically taken out of the equation by the sentence, I can do the same thing faster on glass. Then what is the advantage of digital if you're slower? So that also, like you say, you went to this meeting 15 years ago. 15 years ago, the speed wasn't there. So even if you wanted it really badly, it wasn't on par with the service that you were providing with glass. And all the other additional benefits, 15 years ago, remote work wasn't a thing. COVID was still in the future, and all these things, right? So the speed component had to be there. And I'm totally with you. The moment it's slower, sometimes things break. But when I have to submit an IT ticket for something, I'm trying to figure it out 5 times myself, because it's going to take longer for the IT to come, get back to me to fix it. And often I find workarounds. But yes, speed is a non-negotiable.
Speed is actually one of those things that people don't consider, but it can be very, very aggravating to have. I've spoken to some places where they say there's a lag, like a 1 second lag in bringing it up. And then there's that pixelation idea, like the focus. And those things can break a pathologist's spirit when it comes to digital pathology. Like that kind of lag over, 50 times a day, 100 times a day is too much to deal with sometimes. It creates frustration. So again, as an ordinary non-informatics pathologist, Alex, for me, it had to be just as smooth as putting it on the scope and looking at it. So,
and what do you think is going to come next? What's your ideas for what is AI going to provide in pathology? Are you looking into it? Are you excited about something in particular? What are your thoughts on the next steps of your particular institution journey and in general for pathologists? But I love your example. You even describe yourself as a non-tech enthusiast, normal pathologist who was able to do it. Is there anything that you're excited about beyond just this digital experience?
I wish I have excitement about AI, but I have a lot of concerns about AI. And I'm the more I'm getting into this conversation, and I've met with a lot of companies and looked at a lot of things and talked to other hospitals, and I think we're at risk of doing the same problems that we did 15 years ago for digital pathology with AI. And the pattern I'm seeing is identical. 15 years ago, there were all the digital path vendors at a meeting, and they were like, we're all ready to go. It was not ready to go. And nobody was up for it. And right now, I'm seeing the same problem. everybody's like, we got AI, everybody can do it. LDT, lab developed tests. We're not ready for it. Radiology has 900 in the US. Radiology has 900 AI tools FDA cleared for diagnosis. Pathology has 6, and my understanding is that it's being pushed as a self-validated AI solution for most companies. I see this changing. I don't think that this is going to be the way in the United States. This may work in other places. I think this is a very regulated country when it comes to risk and also vetting out technology. And I think FDA involvement needs to increase. I know that the DPA are working on this in the US. And I would hope I'll be speaking more with them in the coming months about this, but I think it's not organized. And the other thing, Alex, the most important thing that I've noticed is I don't think pathologists developed a lot of the AI tools currently. And I think that this is a problem with pathologists not being engaged in the process of creating things. The first AI tools that we're going to use at NYU are going to be self-developed. We already created a couple. They're looking incredible, and they're very basic, and they're very practical. They're like practical things that are the most common things that pathologists want. Developing an algorithm for prostate carcinoma, Gleason grading. I think there's some utility for that, but is that the first thing that we would want? I'm not sure. Like I as a pathologist, I'm not sure that that's what I see as the first thing you'd want. So we're going to redo it in our own way. And then external vendors, yeah, we still look at them and, we'll keep them in consideration, but I want to see more FDA cleared stuff for the US because I think that I'm worried about a bunch of things related to AI.
What's the thing that worries you most?
I was at a meeting, for example, in New Orleans a couple months ago called Executive War College. And there were some lawyers there who were on a panel discussion, a few different sessions. And they were, first of all, very, very apprehensive about using AI in a clinical work currently. The reason why is that a lot of the times we don't know how things were trained and where the things came from. The transparency isn't there. We don't get a predictive value given to us like negative or positive really easily. Sometimes that data is not there. The different places it was trained on, the data sets it was trained on, and when you implement it on yours, how are we tracking and making sure that that's the right answer? Pathologists are going to be apprehensive already about that technology suggesting an answer. What happens if the pathologist and the AI don't agree, right? Like, where is that heading? Who is right? How do you determine that? I think that currently the way it's going, and radiology is an example of this, there was a paper published about them doing mock trials about radiologists' opinions of when they used AI and not used AI. Who did the responsibility go to? And most of the time it went to the radiologist, not to the software or to the technology. So I think that responsibility is still ours. And so I think if we're going to do it that way, if the responsibility is going to be ours, then I think we have to vet it out completely in a scientific way, not in a trendy way where we try to get the fastest, coolest technology. I think the idea is to get the best things going for AI, not the fastest or coolest looking. And last thing I wanted to say, the speed is not, there was a great one-page editorial by, I think it was Eric Topol, it might have been somebody else in Nature, talking about the scientific, we're talking about efficiency a lot of the times with AI, but is that really the most important thing, efficiency? I'm not sure it is. Like, we have a scientific basis of this specialty. You as a pathologist know that, we're dealing with hundreds of years of science building. So have we built AI with that science background, or have we built it with speed background? And I'm not sure we figured that out yet. Are we actually building stuff to enhance the science or enhance the speed? It's two different conversations.
Yes, I think often it is with speed in mind. It is, and when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, quantification of things, to do it faster, to do it more accurately as well. But you are right, these are two different conversations, like two different tracks of applying AI, and they are often put into the same bucket and kind of confused.
Exactly. I mean, we weigh this anyway, right, Alex? Like in our lives, we weigh this anyway. Speed versus quality versus depth, right? Like there's different attributes, like, right? It's our whole life is like that.
I know. I'm laughing because at one company where I was working, like, you can have it fast and you can have, there was like three different variable, fast and something. Ah, shoot, I have to Google that because it was, but there was that you cannot have all three of them. Oh, it was fast, accurate. I don't remember. Let me Google it so that I can actually say it.
Yeah, I mean, we all compromise to create the best combination, right? Like you want ideally all three of those things, but you can't have them all perfectly. So you try to do the best possible, safest, cleanest way to get all three of them as high as
cheap.
You can, right?
It was cheap. The third one was good.
Oh, cheap.
So fast, accurate, and cheap.
Yeah.
You can have it fast and accurate, but it's not going to be cheap. You can have it cheap and accurate, but it's not going to be fast. Or you can have cheap and fast, it's not going to be accurate. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, well, let's see where it goes. I think we're going to watch it, but I think it's going to change a lot. My prediction is that in the next year or so, we're going to see pathologists get more involved in creating things. And if I know the mind of a pathologist, I think they're going to invent the ideas that are not currently easy diagnoses to make by our own eyes. Like some of these AI tools are already straightforward for most pathologists, and I don't think that's a real effective tool. I think like if AI can go into things that we don't normally do, like microenvironments and like looking at ratios of things that we don't normally look at, that is incredible. Like then you're actually pushing the science forward. So
yes. Totally. And I like these collaborations, so to say. I had a couple of guests on the podcast developing image analysis where the pathologist visually trains the AI, visually evaluates, but then the calculations are based on the visually recognized features. I think it was a podcast with Rish Pai, and he was doing work on colorectal cancer. And they're like, I don't know how many features that you describe in the report of the colorectal cancer, but he basically built AI to distinguish all those features and then made combinations of those features to make predictions, which I thought was fantastic because this is the augmentation that you want. You have the...
No, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of potential there. And also for QA things and QC, and I think there's so much untapped potential in that world.
Syed, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your experience with the trailblazers. I'd love everybody to go fast in digital pathology instead of slow.
Thanks so much, Alex. Appreciate it. Nice to see you again.
So I hope this implementation story inspires my trailblazers, and I talk to you in the next episode.